Hello, welcome everyone to Maranatha Call. We're on the road again, and we want to talk about another verse. We're just going to read it right away, and then we'll dive in and explain what it is about that we think is pretty neat. So, it's found in Revelation chapter 13, and it is verse 6. Then he, this is the beast, the Antichrist. Alright, then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven.
That's it.
So that's the verse we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And Gabe was the one that was looking at this verse originally, and something stood out to him. So, Gabe.
Hello, everyone. Well, I just found it very interesting at this point in Revelation, coming from a post-trib standpoint that we used to take. We would thought, who is this group of people that are in heaven? Because obviously this is not at the end of the tribulation period in context of this verse. And so I just found it very interesting that the beast is blaspheming God's name and his dwelling. And when we say his dwelling, we immediately think, oh, he's blaspheming heaven. But that's not actually the case here in this verse. It's interesting because it says his dwelling, and then there's a phrase that says, and those who dwell in heaven. But that Greek word can also be translated namely, or that is. So in other words, that phrase, that is, namely, those who dwell in heaven, those who dwell in heaven is qualifying or explaining what God's dwelling is. So it's interesting that there's this group of people called God's dwelling that are in heaven at this point that the beast is blaspheming. So the question is, who are God's dwelling?
Yep. Very interesting. So, and there are actually some translations that will have that word, namely, in there. And so I'm going to read Ephesians chapter 2, the last couple verses. Now, therefore, you are no longer strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God, having been built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone, in whom the whole building being fitted together grows into a holy temple in the Lord, in whom you also are being built together for a dwelling place of God in the Spirit. So that's one verse of context. And Stephen will read from 1 Corinthians 3, verse 16.
And it says, let me find it here. Do you not know that you are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? And then talking about the church when he says, do you not know?
Yep.
And then the next one is, what was it, 1 Peter 2:5. 2:5.
Yes.
And that says, you also, again talking to the church, as living stones are being built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. Therefore, it is also... Okay, so we'll stop there.
Yeah.
So that's the
So there's three different verses off the bat that describe the church as the dwelling place of God, being made into that. And so we just wanted to share that with you all as just another nugget in Scripture to show where the church will be during the 7-year period.
Very clearly that we're in heaven, and it's almost like John, who is writing the book of Revelation, takes that for granted here. He says, the beast is blaspheming God's name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. So it's very clear, if the church is the dwelling place of God, then John is taking it for granted there that the reader knows that at this point, the dwelling place of God is in heaven with him.
Right? Yeah. Neat. So we just want to share that with you guys. We thought it was pretty cool. So yeah, we'll be back on with more videos and insights. We love studying the Word together.
Yes.
Keep
God
looking
bless
up.
you guys. Amen. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom. See ya.